I was curious because I think it was back in 1982 when you had like your first enlightenment experience, I think. And you mentioned how it seemed like only 10 or 15 minutes had gone by. But what had happened is that you'd been out in this state for like maybe 4 hours or so when you actually looked, when you came to and looked at your watch. The analogy is this is what people under anesthesia report all the time. In other words, they have this sense that no time has passed.
You were not around that day.
But they report a very similar phenomenon. You know, that it seems like they'll wake up sometimes from anesthesia and they'll go, you know, have you started yet? You're done? They're actually quite surprised. So whatever our timekeeping mechanism is, right? It's different from sleep. It's noticeably different from sleep because often when you sleep, except in some rare instances, you have a sense that, you know, time has passed. You know, you went to sleep, you woke up, you know, you may not be able to judge it exactly. But characteristically, under anesthesia, when people come to, they feel like no time has passed. Any thoughts? It's a pleasure to share the stage with Sadhguru and with Nico. So, you know, how does anesthesia work? Actually, how many people here had anesthesia?
Oh.
Great topic, right? Yeah, right.
A lot of clients out there.
Exactly, right. All right, fantastic. So what happened to you? You know, some people say we turn the brain off, or we make you unconscious, we put you in a coma. But I think so we've tried to really understand what's happened. And we've done this by doing a number of studies in humans as well as in animals. And so I'll just give you the quick back-of-the-envelope way to think about it. When you take the anesthesia drugs, or when they're given to you by the anesthesiologist, the brain isn't turned off. You know, it's not like all of a sudden the switch flips. If you look at what happens to the brain, it's actually in a highly, highly dynamic state. It's really, the actual circuits in the brain are oscillating. They're creating waves. And to give you some sense of this, if you look at my hands like this, and they're oscillating now, this is the way your brain is in a normal state of, forgive me, consciousness, right? All right? All right? All right? As I understand in my little limited way, all right? All right? But then what happens is the drugs take over the circuits, and now the circuits oscillate like this. And as long as you keep the drugs there, they're doing that. Now, what does that mean? It means that if this brain area was communicating with that brain area so that you could be conscious, it can no longer do that. When you turn the drugs off, the brain returns. As long as you keep the drugs on, it does this. It creates these oscillations. It's very much like this YouTube video, which I'm sure some of you have seen, where you have a bridge in Tacoma, Washington. I don't know if you've seen this, the bridge in Tacoma, Washington. And all of a sudden, you know, it starts to oscillate in a perfect sine wave, just like this. And no traffic can go across the bridge. It's the same thing that happens under anesthesia. And what happens is that these oscillations, because they're so strong, they take over the brain, they're not natural. And you remember one of the things that Bala mentioned was that after anesthesia, our brains often don't work the way they did beforehand. So now you can see if you've been in a state like this for 4 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours, and, you know, look, I got my AARP card about 12 years ago myself, so I'm in that category too, right? You know, you can understand why your brain may not work, right? So, and basically that's it. And what's good about that, what's good about what I'm telling you is that we as anesthesiologists can see this state. We can see it on the EEG of patients in the operating room, and we can use it to change the way we deliver our drugs. That's the practical implication of this. And then the other practical implication of it is that as we take anesthesia seriously, in other words, don't say, oh, we just give you drugs and you go away and you come back. As we take it seriously and study it, then we can start interacting with our neurology colleagues and make links between problems that they're working on. We can actually begin to have conversations with, you know, distinguished individuals like Sadhguru, who can help us understand what is it we're actually doing on a deeper level. But if we haven't taken what we do seriously in terms of what's happening in the brain, we're not in that position. And that's where I'd like to think that we're trying to move the research now to, in other words, use anesthesia, the study of anesthesia, to help us connect with some of these deeper ideas about the brain, the mind, and also consciousness.
Do you have any thoughts on how we are doing?
How we're connecting anesthesia to So what we work on as neurologists, or what I work on, is very related and very, very connected in that we're trying to understand how patients who lose consciousness because they've had a structural brain injury or a cardiac arrest or some other kind of problem can reestablish the process of a conscious state in a brain that's been injured, and what are the rules of the recovery, and what are the ways in which it can happen, and what are the limitations, and how do people get stuck along the way, and could we help them? And it turns out that there's a lot of variation.
Sadhguru.
Dr. Brown and Dr. Skip, highly accomplished doctors in their areas of proficiency, but I'm completely unschooled. So, because for me, the only way I know anything I know is from my own experience. So my language and my expression could be a bit abrasive, or if it seems abrasive, please pardon me because I'm nearly illiterate. So, first of all, the nature of the language that we are speaking, I'm talking about the English language. This language is very good for describing and defining external things, but is very limited when it comes to internal dimensions of many aspects of who we are. So, if we have to use yogic terminology for this, what you're referring to as consciousness is considered as jagruti, that means wakefulness. We do not consider wakefulness as consciousness. Wakefulness is the state of the body. Wakefulness is the state of the mind. Wakefulness is the state of the bioenergies within us. But that's not consciousness.
Can I ask you another question? I did a little reading about you, and he's not as uneducated as he would have you believe. He's actually quite educated.
That's pretty clear.
And I was curious because I think it was back in 1982 when you had like your first enlightenment experience, I think. And you mentioned how it seemed like only 10 or 15 minutes had gone by. But what had happened is that you'd been out in this state for like maybe 4 hours or so when you came to and looked at your watch. The analogy is this is what people under anesthesia report all the time. In other words, they have this sense that no time has passed.
You were not around that day.
But they report a very similar phenomenon, that it seems like they'll wake up sometimes from anesthesia and they'll go, have you started yet? You're done? They're actually quite surprised. So whatever our timekeeping mechanism is, right? It's different from sleep. It's noticeably different from sleep because often when you sleep, except in some rare instances, you have a sense that, time has passed. You went to sleep, you woke up, you may not be able to judge it exactly. But characteristically, under anesthesia, when people come to, they feel like no time has passed. Any thoughts?
See, our sense of time, the only way human beings know time is by the cyclical movement of things that are happening. If the earth spins once, we call it a day. If the moon goes around the earth, we call it a month. If the planet goes around the sun, we call it a year. Or if the clock goes around, we call it an hour. So, only by cyclical movements we know time. What cyclical movement means is, all physical dimensions of the existence, from atomic to cosmic, exists only because of cyclical movements. Anything physical in the universe is naturally cyclical. So the entire yogic process is just about this, how to transcend the cyclical movement of our existence. Because cyclical movement means we are going in circles. If I tell somebody, you're going in circles, what does it mean? It means you're not getting anywhere. So this is the fundamental ethos, that once you're attached to cyclical moments of life, you're not really getting anywhere. But it feels like you're going somewhere. Today, everybody knows this experience because most of them walk only on the treadmills. I was I was in conversation with Ed Bagley, who's an environmentalist, and he said, if somebody from another planet comes here, some aliens come here and see, we drive to the gymnasium and then cycle inside the gymnasium on a stationary bicycle, what will they think?
Right.
So, cyclical movement signifies physical existence. Physical existence, as today fundamental physics is talking about it, forever the yogic sciences have been saying this, it is a minuscule of the larger space. It is just some 0.000 some percentage, negligible percentage, all of us together, and the planet and the universe and everything. The physical universe is just way below 1% of the cosmic space. That is true even with the individual atom. The substance is way below 1%. So this minuscule is our engagement. How I see in my experience is, it's only the footprint. We are so engaged with the footprint. I have been in the jungles of South India for long periods of time. At one time I was involved in tiger census. So for days on end we followed the tiger's footprints. We saw only the footprint, we have not seen a damn tiger. So till you see the tiger, by footprints, whatever imagination you have, tiger breaks it for you. When it growls at you, it's all gone. All the… you studied the footprint, you thought you understood and how he does things, his behavior, everything you understood by his footprints, how he moves, what he does. But when you see him, all this knowledge you gather vanishes in one moment. Fortunately, he didn't make breakfast out of you, but even just seeing him, everything vanished. So right now, we are just studying the footprint. Consciousness, the remaining 99 point whatever percentage that is there in the atom, that's there in the cosmos, this is consciousness. An atom has captured a minuscule of consciousness. You and me have captured the largest amount compared to any other creature on this planet. That's why we are at the peak of evolution, that we have captured the largest. But time we know only because of our involvement with cyclical movements. Once there is no cyclical movement, or in some way if you get disengaged with the physicality of your existence. When I say physicality, everything that is physical about you is accumulated over a period of time, isn't it?
Sure.
It's an accumulation. Now, everything that's mental about you is also accumulated, the content, I'm saying. The framework may be there, but the content is all accumulated. What you accumulate cannot be you, isn't it? It can be yours, but it can never be you. So once there is a little disengagement with the physicality of what you have gathered, suddenly there's no sense of time nor space. What is now is then, what is then is now, what is here is there, what is there is here, everything gets like this. It's very beautifully expressed. The Adiyogi, the first yogi, over 15,000 years ago, he said this. People, his disciples, squeezing him, asking, what is the nature of this existence? Where does the cosmos begin? Where does it end? He laughs at them and says, I can pack your cosmos into a mustard seed.
Wow.
So just make sure we understand.